For those that I have not met, my name is Lori Staggs. I'm the Together Towards Transplant Program Coordinator with Optimus. I work with a lot of our families as they're going through the Together Towards Transplant Program. I am sure everyone in this room is curious to know, where's Darcy? Darcy's parents both have fallen recently, so unfortunately she's home and managing their care. I know, it's very sad. But I want to say that we're here to support you, myself, Amy, and Avery. So if you guys are waiting on something from Darcy or need to talk to Darcy about something, please do not hesitate to come up and talk to one of us because we do want to support you guys. So during National Donate Life Month in April, we honor the people who have given the gift of life through organ, eye, and tissue donation. We also celebrate the lives that have been saved and helped and healed because of donors' generosity. And on your tables tonight, you'll see the National Donate Life sign. This year, it's represented by trees as a symbol of life and connection. So just like trees grow and support each other in a forest, donation connects people with their donors, recipients, and their families. Like a tree that grows and stands for generations, a donor's gift leaves a lasting legacy of hope and light. So off the list, you might see each other up there. No, that was perfect. So off the list equips and empowers individuals on the kidney transplant list and their families with the tools needed to find living donors. Our belief is that all individuals on the kidney transplant list and their families deserve support and access to the tools that will enable them to get off the list and on to living their best lives. We walk with individuals through the difficult and challenging process of kidney transplantation. The Together Towards Transplant program, it's a program that you guys can walk through with Darcy and I, where we get to learn more about you and help craft your story and just share your story while you're searching for a living kidney donor. So we really equip and empower you with the tools, resources, and support while you're going through this program. We're going to talk about some of our other resources here that we have at Off the List. So our transplant circles are a group at the end of each of our monthly educational seminars where we break out the room to one side maybe for the people waiting on kidneys, and the other side is for our caregivers, our kidney donor champions, and our support person. Because we want you to have a safe space where you can talk to somebody who understands your journey that you're going through. This is your way to connect with them and just really be able to share your open feelings and thoughts with someone who understands exactly what you're going through. Our Transplant Pals are a one-on-one mentorship program. You can see in our room tonight, we have a lot of people with the Kidney Crew Off the List blue shirts. They are Transplant Pals. What they do is they've been on the journey that you guys have been on and they've been transplanted. So they mentor you as you're going through the process. They provide you with the support, hope, and another safe space just to talk with those individuals who understand what you're going through, because going through this process can be isolating and we never want you to feel that you guys are alone, because we're all here to support you. You may be able to reach your transplant pal will probably reach out to you once a month. It may be on text, email, it may even be an in-person meeting or on the phone. And our OTL Warrior Fund, this is a needs-based marketing package for individuals awaiting the kidney transplant. This was started in 2025 because some of our families were having difficulty affording some of the outreach marketing materials that we provide. So this is a great program for people so that they can share their need for a living kidney donor. And now, tonight we have 3 panelists who are here to speak and share their story about why they decided to give the donation of a living kidney. Our first speaker is George Sussery.
Very good. Well, listen, first of all, thank you so much to Off the List for inviting me to be here tonight. You know, what Off the List does is extraordinary. They just don't offer just education. They offer strategy and structure. And most importantly, they offer hope. Off the List gives people tools when they feel powerless. And that truly does matter. My name is George Cecere, and I stand here tonight as an organ donation advocate, a caregiver, a living kidney donor, and the founder of TCH Caregivers Heart. But before any of those titles, I was always just Terry's husband. Now, 20 years ago, Terry was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy. For years, we managed it, medications, monitoring the labs, adjusting life around a weakening heart. We were living with heart disease, but we were living. And then in 2022, everything changed. Her native heart failed. She was hospitalized and placed on an Impella heart pump, which is a mechanical device that temporarily does the work that the heart can no longer do. So there was a machine keeping her alive. Now, she was listed for transplant on November 1st, 2022 at the Christ Hospital. We didn't wait at home, we waited in the hospital room. And fortunately for us, the wait was uncharacteristically short, even for a heart transplant. She waited just 4 days before a matching heart was found. Now I want to pause here because I know most of you in this room have waited far longer. Some of you are still waiting. Our experience was not typical, particularly for kidney transplants. And we never forget that or take that blessing for granted. But even so, when you're in a hospital room, when a machine is keeping your spouse's failing heart alive, 4 days can feel like forever. And then we got the call. Terry received a transplant, and she became the very first heart transplant recipient at the Christ Hospital. Now, that was a milestone for that institution, and it was a miracle for our family. Because someone somewhere said yes to donation in the worst moment of their life, Terry is alive today, and she's here with me. Now, after Terry's transplant, I also began noticing something else. Caregivers were exhausted. They were strong, but they were isolated, and they felt overwhelmed. And even though they were grateful, I don't think everyone could really see all of the weight that they were carrying. And so that's why I founded an organization called TCH Caregivers Heart. There are some brochures on your table about that. It's a community created to support caregivers of solid organ transplant, all types. We have 186 members from all across the country. We meet on Zoom. It's caregiver only, and it's peer-led. So it's completely free. There's no cost to this at all. Because caregivers need strength and they need support just as well. And when you strengthen the caregiver, you strengthen the patient. And when you strengthen the patient, you protect the gift of transplant. So Terry waited 4 days, just 4 days. But in the kidney world, 4 days is not the story. 4 years might be, or maybe 5 years, might be even longer. So while we were celebrating a miracle that was measured in days, I was meeting kidney patients whose lives were being measured in dialysis sessions. 3, 4, 5 days a week, 4 to 6 hours at a time, sometimes longer, week after week, year after year. And that contrast stayed with me. You know, heart transplants, of course, depend on deceased donation. And kidney transplantation has another path, living donation. I began asking myself a difficult question. If I really believe in this, and if I advocate for this, could I possibly do this? So last August, I began testing and going through the evaluation process. I didn't post about it, I didn't announce it, I just started testing. And just let me say this clearly for anyone here who might be considering donation. The testing is rigorous, and it should be. There's blood work and imaging and cardiac evaluations and psychological screenings, independent donor advocate meetings and education sessions and repeated labs. But every step is designed to protect the donor. You know, there were moments of uncertainty. There were moments when I wondered if I would qualify. And there was moments when I considered my family and what it might mean to them. But then something happened that I'll never forget. On the 3rd anniversary of Terry's heart transplant, I received a call that I had been approved as a living kidney donor. So 3 years to the day that we celebrated someone saving her life, I was told that I could help save someone else's. Now, there are moments in life that feel bigger than a coincidence, and this was one of them. And then donation day came. Was it easy? Not really. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Recovery required some patience and humility. It required me to accept help, but as a caregiver, that's not easy for me to do. But what I gained far outweighed what I gained. I gained a new perspective. I gained a deeper gratitude. And I gained an immense respect for the kidney patients who endure dialysis with a strength that humbles me. And I gained a privilege of knowing someone else now has more freedom than they did before. A little earlier tonight, I met my recipient here for the first time. And I want to say something directly to them. Her journeys were different at the beginning. You walked the waiting paths, and you made the brave decision to pursue training. You allowed an organization like Off the List to help you amplify your stories, and that takes courage. I'm in awe of your determination and your persistence. Receiving is not passive. It's a vulnerable act. It's an act of trust. And I am so grateful that our stories intersect. And I'm grateful to see what your second chance is making possible. As I look around the room tonight, I'm very aware of something. Every single person here is on a journey. Some of you are waiting. Some of you have received. Some of you may be considering donating. Some are advocating quietly behind the scenes, and some of you are caregivers, holding everything together while trying not to fall apart yourselves. Different stages, different emotions, different timelines. But there's one common thread: courage. It takes courage to wait, and it takes courage to receive, and it takes courage to consider donating. It takes courage to ask for help, and it certainly takes courage to say yes. Our heart transplant journey was measured in 4 days. Many kidney journeys are measured in years. But no matter the timeline, the emotional landscape is remarkably similar. There's uncertainty, there's hope, there's fear, there's exhaustion, but there's also faith and gratitude. So tonight isn't just about education. It's about honoring the weight of what each of you carries. The appointments, the labs, conversations you have at kitchen tables, private prayers, the social media posts that feel vulnerable to share, and the dialysis sessions that must feel endless, and those recovery days that take patience. None of this is small, and none of you are invisible. Organizations like Off the List exist because waiting should never mean being alone. The communities change experience even before your transplant happens. And if there's one thing I hope to leave you with tonight, it's this: your story matters. Whether you're still waiting, newly transplanted, supporting someone, or considering stepping forward, your story has power. And sometimes the simple act of sharing it is what's going to move the next miracle forward. So thank you for allowing me to share our story, and I'll look forward to answering any questions when we get together later as a panel. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for sharing that so inspiring story. And I'm so happy that you and Marcia got to connect here for the first time tonight. We connected by writing each other, communicating, but never met in person until, I don't know, 6 o'clock. So our next speaker tonight is Penny Gardner. Do you want to come on up?
Hi, everyone. My name is Penny Gardner, and it's my first time here, so I'm not really familiar with Off the List. I spoke to Darcy, who happens to be a friend of my friend Emily, And Darcy and I spoke on the phone, and she asked me to speak last month or maybe a month and a half ago. So I said, sure, I will do that. She asked for me to tell my story. So here's my story. But my story doesn't start with me. It starts with my friend Emily, who was friends with Darcy. In December of 2017, Emily donated her kidney to her sister who was living with polycystic kidney disease. At the time, I watched from the outside. What I saw wasn't just courage, it was obedience. She saw a need and she stepped into it. Months later, I was at her house just for dinner with my husband. Her husband and my husband are very good friends. Nothing formal, just a normal night. And she was just talking about the process, and I was telling her how inspiring it is and how wonderful that was that she was able to do it. And we talked about the testing, the surgery, the recovery, the healing. She was very calm about it, clear and grounded. I told her, of course, I was very proud of her. And then I said something to the fact that I think I could do that. I might want to do that. And she continued to talk about how easy to her the healing was, the recovery, and it obviously it's harder on the recipient than her. And so just some talk happened. Months later, it wasn't a plan at that time. It was just recognition that, to me, that the idea, I didn't feel impossible, something I could do. So it wasn't months later, it was a couple of years later, I saw a billboard, a high school student, local, needed a kidney. And it hit a little differently. I stopped thinking in my general terms and started thinking as a mother. If one of my kids needed a kidney, what would I pray? Would I pray? Yes, I would pray for someone else to step in if I couldn't, or my husband couldn't. So I called the number. I went through the testing at Children's Hospital because she was in high school. And the answer came back after, not right away. I went through some testing and I was a match, and then I wasn't a match. Not at the very end, but the size of my kidney wasn't compatible with what she needed. So that could have ended, but something had already shifted. The question wasn't, can I anymore? It was, am I willing? And scripture became real in that space. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. John 15:13. Emily stayed connected to kidney networks and people in need. Every so often, she would come across someone and think of me. She kept that door open. But life sometimes interfered. Timing didn't line up. Locations didn't work. COVID complicated everything. So even though the willingness was there, nothing moved forward at the time. Then November of 2025, a text from Emily. Would you still be interested in donating? My answer right away was, I think so. What do you have? She connected me right away with Christina through text, and then her and I spoke, Christina. It became specific. No longer was it an idea. There was a person involved. I contacted the Christ Hospital and started the process. The questionnaire, the screening, the testing, then confirmation. I passed the first phase. More testing followed. Blood work, imaging, compatibility. Then the call. I was a match. Surgery was scheduled for June 2025. Then a delay. A medical issue postponed the surgery to August. Then another change. Right before surgery, we were told I was no longer a match due to increased antibodies. That moment forced a decision, stop or continue. I continued. I entered the National Kidney Registry, a system that allows donation chains so one donor can help multiple people indirectly. I was scheduled to donate on September 30th. I was told my kidney would stay local. Christina was then added to the registry days later and received her kidney in mid-December. Another verse became real. carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6:2. After recovery, I met the man who received my kidney. I met his wife, who had donated on his behalf weeks earlier. That man is Bob, and his wife is Stacy. It was clear he is living with my kidney, not symbolic, actual. He was grateful, alive in a way that would not have been possible without this kidney. At the same time, Christina had received hers on December 12th. This wasn't one moment, it was a sequence. A friend's example, a conversation, a statement, I could do that, a failed match, years of waiting, a text, a new connection, a confirmed match, cancellation, a redirection, a final outcome that helped multiple lives. Faith didn't remove obstacles, it removed hesitation for me. The instruction is clear: love others as Christ loves us in action. That is why the decision became simple for me. Not always easy, but clear.
And our last speaker tonight is Angela Easton.
Okay, well, George and Penny were much more prepared than I am. So my name's Angela Easton. I have been a part of Off the List and a part of the board since the beginning. And I want you to think about, we talked about Darcy in the beginning and she's not here. And Penny talked about connection, and all of you have a connection with Darcy and with Off the List. And it's not lost on me how that sort of gets amplified, right? And how you knew somebody who knew somebody, or Darcy knew somebody, or Penny knew somebody who knew Darcy. And so this connection here, I sat in the back of the room just listening, and it's really kind of magical in a way. People come into your life for a reason. And George and Penny and the folks in here that have received the gift and folks who are waiting, I just don't lose hope, because it's right here. It's in this room. So here's my story. It begins in 1989. And I think most of you probably are old enough to remember the movie Steel Magnolias. Right? So everything I knew up until about 2017, 2016, everything I knew about kidney transplant, I learned from Sally Fields in that movie. That's all I knew. So my kidney story starts with Facebook. So who all, before they got involved with Off the List, who all did not have any social media and has since set up social media? Tell me if you did not have social media before Off the List and now you have it. Or you had it but you didn't really use it and now you're on it. I'm gonna tell you, get on it, okay? Because my story starts with a glass of wine and Facebook, which I think is how most really good stories start. 2016. I have two-year-old, at the time they were foster kids, and a 6-year-old daughter. Now those boys are adopted and they're absolutely running me into the ground, but that's not part of the story. Sitting on the couch on a just robust Friday night, drinking a glass of wine and thinking about, what I might vacuum later. And I ran across a story on Facebook. Someone who I knew through someone else who I knew was on Facebook, and you don't have to know people to see things all the time, and it pops up. And she said, my brother needs a kidney. And she actually was his first kidney donor. And she said, you know, the kidney worked for a very long time and it was awesome and it's time for another one. I don't remember exactly how much wine I had that night. But here I go, you know, Facebooking and drinking. And I said, what do you have to do? What do you have to do? And she said, well, first you go for a blood test, and she gave me the donor coordinator at Christ. My wife looked at me like, what in all the what are you doing? You're crazy. We have 3 young children, you know, you're healthy. What in the world? I said, but I looked at the numbers. And when you look at the numbers, what does it say? I think one of them, life expectancy for a living donor is typically longer than the average person. That's mostly because I drink a lot more water right now. The numbers told me that it was safe and that it was something I could do and it wouldn't impact my life almost in any way, which is completely wrong. It has impacted my life in a huge way. Huge. I'm here with Off the List. I got the blood test, and one thing you guys didn't mention, with all the testing, my favorite test, and yours, is the giant jug of pee you get to carry around all day. Yes, track all of that. Yeah, that was thrilling, especially at work. It was awesome. So you do the initial test, and then you go in, and Grace Hospital, which was where I was at, treated me like a queen. I'm like, oh, how many times can we do this? It was like taking me all the places, and I was first in line. It turns out that I was a perfect match for that person on Facebook.
Wow.
A perfect match. A better match than we have not met. I know he lives locally. I know that he is doing well, and there is zero pressure for us to meet. The fact that he is alive and experiencing his children and his family is amazing to me. But set up your social media accounts. You never know who's having an extra glass of wine. What, tomorrow's Friday, so set it up. Make sure you're posting, right? You have a connection here with someone who has a connection with someone else who has a connection. I don't want you to lose hope. It could be a 35-year-old stranger who really loves steel magnolias, who knows nothing about kidneys or transplants. The very first surgery I ever had in my life was when I donated my kidney. Wow. The doctor said, how do you do with the anesthesia? I said, I have no idea. My mom is in the I don't know, the little room you're in when you don't have any clothes on. It's like right before you go into the operating room, and she's holding a bag with my underwear in it, and she's like, Angie, are you sure you want to do this? I was like, Mom, it's a little late for that. I don't have any clothes on. We're kind of in it. She's like, what about your kids? I'm not related to my kids. They're all adopted. You know, there's even if they need a kidney, there's no guarantee I'll be a match. Yeah. 2 years ago, my mom decided she wanted to be a kidney donor. So she was tested. She was actually a match for someone with Off the List. She wasn't able to donate in the very end, but someone who was so worried and so upset and so had such difficulty accepting that I would donate to a complete stranger turned out to be one of the biggest advocates for gifting something you really don't necessarily always need anyway. So don't lose hope that there is someone out there, stranger, wine aficionado, Facebooker, Twitter Xer, someone who sees your shopper, yes, I'm pretty good at that. Someone who sees your bumper sticker or your t-shirt or your yard sign or hears you talking about it. Do not stop talking. Someone will hear that. Someone will hear it. I promise. I did.
I just want to say thank you to our three panelists. We are going to open the floor and Zoom for questions and answers, but their stories have to give you hope. I felt the hope in this room as they were all three sharing their stories. So I hope everyone in this room who's waiting on a kidney or on our Zoom call tonight really feels the hope, because there is somebody out there who's going to donate a kidney to each and every one of you. It's just a matter of when they see your yard sign, your Facebook post, your t-shirt, your card decal, your flyer. I'm trying to think what other marketing materials we have, and somebody's going to see it. So please, if nothing else, leave tonight with hope. So George and Penny, if you'll come back up.
That microphone will just need to be turned on.
Anybody have questions?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I know. Isn't Phyllis Gregory? She's our line dance teacher. We're champions, three of them here. And we've been working to try to get her a living kidney donor. We were just on WKRC TV last Sunday. We were so excited. Yes. You know, our marketing plan is working. We're at the point where we want to be able to tell the story better. Where you know the story from Phyllis, and we have a lot of dedication and enthusiasm, but I wonder if any of the three of you would be willing to share what it was like to have the kidney donated and what it was like afterwards, and getting used to it. My next door neighbor is someone who lost a kidney, and she told me a little bit about her adjustment to living with one kidney. But I'd love to hear from any of the three of you or all of the three of you about what it's like, so that we're a little bit better educated about the donor part. And thank you.
Well, my story is very lackluster because it was very easy. I left the hospital the next day. I went back to work after 2 weeks, even though the nurses said I wouldn't. I said, when can I go back to work? They said, you come back in 2 weeks for a checkup. I said, I'll be going back to work, because I was getting in too much trouble carrying laundry and jugs of milk up the stairs. So they sent me back to work. I think I pay a lot more attention to how my body feels and the things that I should or should not be doing with one kidney, but it was less than a year before I was back playing volleyball, before I was doing all of the things that I should or should not be doing. Just a lot of walking and sort of getting your energy back up and getting your stamina back up. But I think probably mine would be called just about textbook.
You know, my experience was very similar. The surgery itself was really not that bad. The next day I was up walking around the hallway, smiling and feeling good. I went home after 2 days, and unfortunately I did have a bit of a little complication. It really has nothing to do with the transplant surgery or the donation surgery per se. But anyway, I did end up back in the hospital for about 6 days and in not really great shape, but it didn't have really anything to do with that. But so that delayed my recovery a little bit. But even with that, I don't really even think much about that anymore. Even with that, I really feel like within just a couple of weeks, I was back doing everything. Now I'm retired, so I'm not working, but I am busy. I've got a lot of things going on with support for Donating Life and for advocacy that we do. And yeah, I mean, I think how many weeks after was it that we had the shower? That was probably our grandson about 5 weeks ago had a baby. So we have a great grandchild that was born just about 5 weeks ago, which is something Terry never would have got to experience had it not been for transplant. But anyway, That was shortly after my donation, and it was a long, hard day. And I know I felt it after that, but really beyond that, it was kind of the same. It was not that bad.
Same for me. I was home the next day. Let's see. Yeah, that's actually. Home the next day, back to work in 2 weeks. I do work from home, 3 days a week. So that made it a little bit easier to go back in 2 weeks. But I didn't have any complications at all. Sleeping for the first 2 or 3 nights at home was uncomfortable because I like to sleep on my stomach or my side, and that was the worst thing, is the sleep I think that I lost. Other than that, staying away from lifting 10 pounds was hard, really hard. But I did it. That was my big fear, is I don't want to get a hernia. Christina had hernia, which was part of the reason why everything was delayed and why she and I couldn't donate initially to her, just because they had to fix her hernia. And I had never had hernia, and I just didn't want it. So I did everything I could. And I'm on a Facebook page, and if you're not on this Facebook page, I think it's Living Kidney Donor. It's a wonderful page of just people sharing their stories and things that work, things that you might want to get used to. And it was very informative for me. So that was like my biggest fear. And other than that, I'm fine. And yeah, it was nothing. Honestly, I can say it was nothing. 6 months. I did just go to my 6-month appointment at Christ on Tuesday and have my levels checked and everything's fine.
Mine was 2017, and I will say I blew my knee out playing volleyball almost exactly 1 year to the day. So between my kidney surgery and then full knee reconstruction, and the knee was so much worse. It was, I give another kidney.
And I'm only about 17 weeks since donation, and I honestly, I feel great. I have for a long, long time. I've been back and fully active for a long time. So yeah, it's really that easy. Think about it. That's a good question. It's always good to hear both sides. Sure.
And Darcy has, well, and Lori, they all have my contact information. If you think you know someone or you're someone who might be interested, they are more than welcome to call me or send me an email, or we can meet up for wine, whatever. Yeah.
One thing I would like to add, that after listening to your stories, mine was my story, and I didn't offer a whole lot of encouraging words of hope. Something I didn't mention, but I should mention, and my mom and my sister are here. My mom kind of mumbled that. I didn't want to hijack my sister's story. My sister just donated her kidney 6 weeks ago. And I thought about Darcy wants to talk to her, so when I was writing what I wanted to say, I didn't want to talk about her, but after thinking about it, I don't want to give kudos to me, but my sister was going through testing at the same time that I was done with my testing and I was ready to donate. I hadn't told anybody but my husband and Emily and a couple other people. I told work because I needed to be off work. But in June, when I was supposed to donate to Christina, Laura was at my house, my mom was at my house. My mom has since been in our care, staying with us. And so we're sharing responsibility. And so I said, listen, I gotta tell you something. I'm donating a kidney next week. I can't really help out with mom. And she was like, what? But hold up, wait a minute. She had already gotten tested to donate to Sydney, who is here, who is her daughter's very good friend. And she said, I didn't know anything about Sydney at the time that I went through my testing, but then I saw on Facebook she needed one. Mine was already spoken for, so I got Christina. But Laura then proceeded to tell me, I went through the testing and I'm not a match for Sydney. And I said, oh, well, I am a match for Christina. Well, fast forward 2 months, I found out that Christina could not take my kidney and I was going on the NKR. That's when Laura's story starts. She came to see me in the hospital. She met, not planned, but Bree, her coordinator that worked with her, wasn't my coordinator, but happened to come in and check on me because Jackie wasn't available. And that's when it clicked for Laura. Unbeknownst to me, she continued through the NKR, through the testing to go through NKR, and then didn't tell anybody until it was officially that she was met. So anyway, I didn't want to hijack her story. She wanted to tell her story eventually. But that is a story of hope and also that connection. I don't know that Laura would have continued on. She'll talk for herself eventually, but and her and I were talking about donating kidneys. Like that wasn't something as sisters that we are and close and helping with mom and everything else. We weren't talking about, hey, let's donate kidneys together. But because I think followed through, it gave her maybe a little bit more hope and encouragement to say, okay, what is this NKR? Let me get this, let me check into this. And 6 weeks ago she donated and thank goodness now Sydney is now on the NKR list. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out because I didn't think we would have some hope that I was giving because I really didn't. Anyway.
And the connection, I mean,
Yeah.
as you were saying, there's so many people that are connected in so many ways.
Right.
And it's always that unexpected one. And I absolutely agree with social media and the need to market. It's not a flaw in the system, it's just an indication that there are so many less donors than there are recipients. Of the 110,000 people that are waiting for an organ in the United States today, 90,000 are waiting for a kidney. So it's by far the biggest need. And so you have to do that. You have to go out and advocate for yourself. You get that kidney.
Anybody else have?
You all know that as you would be.
You all need to speak up. I wanna know, what do we call a living kidney donor who is doing it altruistically or out of the good of their hearts? Like when we refer to what Phyllis needs, she needs a living kidney donor. But like a lot of times people think, oh, well, it needs to be a brother or a father or a son or a sister. But there are those of you who are doing this out of the goodness of your heart. What do you like to be called besides living kidney donors?
You said it, altruistic is kind of the term that's typically used. Yeah.
Okay.
And there are multiple ways, though, as we talked about. There are multiple ways, as we talked about, for people to get a kidney through the exchange. You can donate directly to the national exchange, just altruistically. You can also donate to a list that each transplant center maintains of people that need kidneys. Again, it's still altruistic because you don't know who your recipient is going to be, but you can kind of narrow it down so you make sure. So, for example, I donated to Christ Hospital, and when I was said to be a match, they said there were about 10. And I started reading stories from off the list about all the people. And I said, oh my God, I can't possibly decide. You decide who's the best match medically. That seemed to me to make the most sense. And because everybody's story is deserving. And all the stories were that way. And then, of course, you can donate direct to someone. So yeah, but I would say that's what I would call it. I would say somebody who donates altruistic. That would seem right. Yeah.
Well, the truth is you're looking for a kidney donor because anyone.
Yeah.
Just because they're not a match to Phyllis, the line dancing queen, it doesn't mean they can't do something to help Phyllis, right? They can be part of that pair donation. They can tell someone else that Phyllis is looking for a kidney. They can talk about it, they can repost your social media. So you're looking for a kidney donor, but really what you're looking for is folks to help spread hope, spread the word, right? Talk about kidney donation as easily as we talk about Hawksworth and donating blood, you know? Normalize it, bring it up in conversation, because eventually we're gonna get to a point where that's what it is.
Yes.
You go into the strip mall down by the Jimmy John's, sign up to donate your kidney, right? Grab some Oreos and a Sprite, and then you keep rolling.
Or the liquor store.
Or at the wine store, yes, yes. But your job that you all have signed up for as champions is to spread the word and to talk about it. Someone will hear that.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be the person who's giving the kidney. Anyone willing to talk about it, anyone willing to repost, anyone willing to put it on a bumper sticker. All of those folks build your connection, build your web and your resource network. So just because you don't think just because you may assume someone isn't eligible, or maybe they've already donated, that person is still a resource, right? That person is still valuable in your connecting, in your communication, in your marketing, in your all of those things. So it could be your niece or nephew at elementary school blabbing to their teacher about, it could be anything, and I've heard that. It could be anyone. You're looking for people who are willing to be a part of your experience in whatever way that they can possibly contribute.
Yes, and the more that we talk about it ourselves and the more we learn, the bolder we get and the more we talk about it, and the stronger we feel. And I feel like it gives us more optimism the more that we do.
Right.
So,
And I would encourage anybody who is a recipient, when you're comfortable and if you're comfortable, it's really important that you continue to share that story, because that really brings it home. Sometimes transplant can be, somebody who's not familiar, can be sort of a thing that's way out there that they don't really understand or know anything about. And when you can bring it home to talk about family and talk about the things that you've experienced, I can talk a little bit from the recipient side too, because 3.5 years ago, had Terry not had the heart transplant, there would have been so many things that we never would have gotten to experience, including the great grandson that was born just about 6 weeks ago. And those things, but it's not even those momentous things, kind of the everyday things. We're grateful for every sunrise and every next day and the next day after that. And you have to talk about that, especially if you're a recipient. It's a good idea to continue. You've learned how to market with this organization, how to get a kidney. Now then keep talking about it. Keep letting people know, because that spreads the word. And that'll just lead to another connection somewhere that's going to help somebody else.
thank you very much. Did I ask all of the questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? You guys have 3 great people up front who have donated a kidney who will answer just about any question you ask them.
Maybe even about wine. I'm not
How often do you have to go back? How long?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I believe there's a 6-month checkup, right? I haven't gotten to that yet, but there's a 6-month checkup and then it's 1 year, and then is there an 18-month or just 2 years? Then 2 years. So that they go back and they make sure that your kidney function is still good. But there's some intermediate labs that you may have with your own general practitioner, and I just know that the one that I have left is doing great. So, and I hope the one you have is doing great.
No other questions? Do you guys know what kidney they took and why they took the specific kidney from you?
So generally, if you have 2 equally functioning kidneys, they're always going to take your left kidney. because there's just more stuff over here that they'd have to wiggle around and move around. Your left kidney is more accessible than the right one, usually if they're both functioning the same. So, mine was a little bit longer ago than yours, but I don't even think I could find the scar here. It's like, I don't know, a half an inch long where they put in the worm shaped knife and whatever it is, and then just right under my belly button, that's about that long, but you know, they pump it full of gas and stick their hand up there and right. Unless I've had a lot of wine. Yes, tomorrow night, but usually you're like.
Yeah, they told me that, you know, how big the incision was depended on how big the surgeon's hand was. And I said, well, can I have the person with the smallest hand? But yeah, that's still the same.
They took my right kidney. And I honestly, I think they said they want to leave me with the best kidney. And I never had any issues with my kidneys that I was aware of. Obviously, I'm unmatched, so, but they did take my right, yeah. Took my right. I will say the incision, is underneath, it went long ways, yeah.
I think that's because you're skinnier.
That, if I have to list anything, I guess that's the negative. It's not the incision. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't bother me. It's just the excess skin that I'm dealing with. And now my weight is a little bit out of proportion. But we're working on that, and it'll work itself out. It's only been 6 months, but that is definitely like, whoa. I never had C-sections. My sister actually had C-sections, so she said it's just like a C-section scar. And I'm like, okay. Again, it's not the scar, it's the after effects of the scar that they did take my right kidney.
I will say that I left the hospital weighing 9 pounds more than when I went in. And I said, well, that's what I remember. They could have been lying to me, but I said, I don't think this is how this is supposed to work. Before I went into the hospital, and I remember I had very young children. Delilah was 6 years old, and I explained to her, I said, I'm gonna go into the hospital, and when I come home, I'm not gonna be feeling great. And she put her little hands on my face, and she said, Mom, I don't think you really know how hospitals work. But yeah, I left weighing more, and I was really, that probably made me more mad. This is not what I didn't sign up for, okay? When you take something out, it doesn't, the math is not math. But there was gonna be something else I was gonna say. I do think, you know, you get a different perspective. When I told people back in 2017, I wrote letters to all the doctors, and I meant to dig out my kidney pillow too, and I forgot. I told people that I left the hospital with one less kidney, but I came home with a bigger heart. And I still feel the same. So it's 8 years later. I've been with Off the List this whole time talking about my experience and about how a random connection made via Cabernet truly changed my life. You know, that 6-year-old girl who told me I didn't know how hospitals work, you know, she's in high school now, and she still uses kidney donation, and her experience at 6 and her experience with Off the List all of these years in her homework, you just don't know where that's going to pop up and who that's going to impact one day. Don't stop talking. Don't stop sharing your story. Before transplant, after transplant, keep talking. Those words, that's where the hope lives. That's where it lives, and it is present in this room, and anywhere you all are at. Just keep talking. Tell your story.
All right, one last time for any questions. Oh, we have one from John.
So I was just wondering if you, having donated a kidney, if you or a loved one sometime in the future need a kidney, does that give you, I've heard talk about this voucher program, things like that, but does that give you something, I mean, is that something you guys have available to you, having been a donor?
I've heard that that's the case. I really haven't looked into it just yet. But my understanding is that as a donor, if someone in your family, immediate family needs a kidney, you get a voucher that helps.
Yeah, I
Get
can find
it.
right here.
I think it's like a, program card.
Yeah.
I believe that that's true. I think that's accurate. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, it is correct. You can list up to 5 people, I think it is, in your family that if they would need a kidney, they can use your voucher if you don't need it. Great question. I think you guys are off the, just
Being a donor, I know you go through a lot of testing as a recipient, I did. But that physical, it's probably the best physical you ever get in your life, and it's no cost to you, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And, being a little older adult, I had a few extra tests that I had to go through because at a certain age, there's more cardiac tests. And once I decided to do this, it was like, if nothing else, I'm going to have the best physical I've ever had in my life. And I'm going to know that I'm either healthy or if I have a problem, I'm going to know that too. And so, yeah, and of course, there is no cost. It's covered by the insurance of the recipients is basically how that works. But yeah, I mean, it's a great workup. And, there are a lot of people who try to become kidney donors and for one reason or another don't. I've heard roughly 35% of the people who attempt to become a donor can't for some reason or another. And sometimes it's something relatively minor. It's a kidney stone that's too big or something else that might cause that. But yeah, if nothing else, if you're considering about it, you're going to get a great physical.
Yeah. So you'll know that you're really good health or you got some issues.
You guys are making sure I get my steps in tonight.
But just for those that are looking for a kidney, my son was a donor to me. But when you donate a kidney, all your expenses are paid for if you're a donor because it automatically goes on Medicare. So throughout the first 2 years, if you're a donor, all your costs is incurred off of my insurance or the recipient's insurance. So you now have to go on Medicare. So if you go on Medicare if you're a young person, you're on Medicare for 3 years. And then they kick you off because the assumption is you're cured and you can go on general life. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
I think the questions have been asked that they're gonna be comfortable asking, but maybe we'll just stick around for a little bit if you guys aren't comfortable speaking in a large setting. They're still here to answer your individual questions. Again, I cannot thank you guys enough for coming tonight and sharing your stories. I just really, really hope that everybody is leaving here with more encouragement and hope.
Oh.